So we're just gonna stream with the light off so that I don't have to deal with the camera. But we're gonna play some Minecraft and we're gonna listen to an old radio show. So that's fun. Maybe we'll actually get to do the thing. We're gonna put on Dimension X. This is episode 27 of Dimension X.
Described in future tense.
It's called No Contact.
Can you predict what will come in 100 years? Or in 10? Or in the next minute? Some people think they can. Nuclear scientists, mathematicians, astronomers, biologists. They'll predict the shape of the future. Why? Because they make the future. Because they see beyond the known dimensions of time and space into the unknown. Dimension X. It was in the year of 1982 that spacemen first discovered the Great Galactic Barrier. In the past 10 years, rocket travel to the moon and the nearer planets had become commonplace.
Actually,
Then
I've listened to this one.
fixed their sights on a more distant...
That's where I was. That's why I could remember up to 30, because I've already listened to those. The last one Oh, yeah, I was on 35. That's why. So we're going to skip ahead to 35. Ooh, excuse me. 31, 32, 33, 34, 35. Is what we should have now.
Adventures in time and space. Transcribed in future tense.
One more. There we go. Now
Adventures in
listen
time
to
and
Dimension
space.
X while we play Mince Raft.
Transcribed in
Future tense.
Dimension
X.
The National Broadcasting Company, in cooperation with
NBC,
Street and
huh?
Smith, publishers of astounding science fiction, bring you Dimension X.
Oh. Analog wound up actually sponsoring this show?
The war
Okay.
had been going on for generations. The sea and air were ruled by guided atomic missiles, radiations, and total destruction drove man underground. And there the war continued. The great beds of shale and limestone trembled as an underground cruiser chewed its way through the ageless rock. The ship was squat, ugly, the top of its cutting head 40 feet above the clattering caterpillar treads. It was windowless, and behind the grinding duralloy blades were ugly locks that concealed the guns. On the bridge, Commander Sanderson fought the bucking vibration, one hand tight on a stanchion.
Culver. Aye, sir. What's wrong with the insulation? It's hotter than oven up here.
Port refrigeration unit went out. Starboard can't carry the load. I've got damage control on it.
Go back.
Aye, sir.
Give me a seismo reading.
Severe shock 30 seconds back. Change course to 175 degrees. And half speed, please, sir, till I can chart the straighter.
Mr. Culver. Aye, sir. 175, half speed. Aye, sir.
Navigation, Lieutenant Watson.
Bridge here. Change course to 175, Watson.
175. Aye, sir.
175, apparently. I love the like, it's almost cheesy, this theremin. I like
course,
it.
175.
175, aye.
Half speed.
Half speed, aye.
What?
We hit something. What is it, Mr. Watson?
Oh, they hit
Lava,
something.
Probably. Maybe it doesn't mean anything.
No, I guess
Magnus,
not.
what are you doing, bud?
Mr. Watson,
Yes, Clark?
we ever gonna get
As
out
long
of
as it
here?
doesn't break anything.
Mean the lava?
The whole business. We've been under rock for 3 months.
You better keep quiet, Clark. Psycho officer has rubber heels.
Oh, I don't care about Carpenter. He's been over me already with those stinking reaction tests. If he gives me one more ink blot to look at,
What's
I'll...
your dial? 1 degree correction.
Right. Mr. Watson, what was it like
Huh? When?
on the surface? I never saw the surface. I was born in the Denver cave, half a mile down.
Oh, that was a long time ago, Clark.
Yeah. But you remember, don't you? You and Kovacs are the only ones on the ship who remember the surface.
It was war then, too. Kovacs was in the army, the infantry. The Queen of Battles. Well, the Queen's dead now.
What was it like?
You mean in the surface wars? Yeah. Well, they had chaplains.
Chaplain?
I guess you never heard of that. Now we have psycho officers. Yeah, they don't talk about religion much these days.
It must have been something on the surface. I dream about that. I don't know what it was really like, but I dream about it. Then somebody takes me and shoves me down on the bottom of a hot closet. They shove a big hand over my mouth and I can't breathe. I wake up and I want to bust out of here with my fingernails. I just...
What's the matter, Clark?
Nothing, Dr. Carpenter.
Nothing?
No, sir.
We were just passing the time, Carpenter.
When's the last time you had an emotional reaction test, Watson?
I don't know. I forgot.
Just remember your seniority doesn't exempt you from psychiatric review. This isn't some slipshod surface vessel with organized superstition aboard.
The old chaplains weren't so bad.
Not scientific.
You know, I can remember when psychiatry and mental hygiene were the hope of mankind. Now look at it.
Notes in my report, Watson.
Make sure to
Magnus
spell
has
my
found
name
himself
right.
a box in which to sit.
Now hear this. Now hear this. Attention all hands. Igneous rock detected. Fresh lava flow. Stand by to go to quarters.
You're lucky, Watson.
That is
I'll
all.
finish with you later. I've got to check combat detachment.
Sure. Go play with your ink blots. I'm busy.
And now
Go
listen.
on, get out of the way. Get down to the combat detachment. They'll be happy to see you. Clark, check those dampers.
Something about that pyramid, it gets me every time. It's just like, whoa, things are happening.
What kind of a chicken guy are you?
Anytime you want to start anything, you lying, yellow
All
chis-
right, don't flip your wig.
All right, I don't want no trouble. That rubber-soled rat carpenter, he's worked us all over.
Yeah, all except Norman. Hey, Norman. Norman, how come you ain't been psychoed?
I don't need it. I'm stable.
I bet you any money he's a stoolie for carpenter. I've seen his 201 personnel file. It's blank.
I heard a guy say he was born in a lab.
What do you mean?
You ever seen him eat?
Oh, you're crazy.
The science press has been working on something like that.
You're crazy.
You know how many men they fell short in the last draft? 900,000.
So what?
And suppose you run out of real men for soldiers. Suppose you figure how to make them. Artificial. If they ever do, they ain't gonna talk about it until it's combat tested.
Yeah, I never thought of that. Hey, Newman. What do you got inside of you? Gears?
I'm not supposed to talk about myself.
Yeah? Well, suppose I make you talk.
Hey, sit down, Shep. Sit down, big... All right,
Let go of me or I'll lay you out, too.
Hey, cut it,
Keep
cut it,
that,
cut it,
knock
cut
it
it
off.
off.
Shut up.
At ease, men. Well, how's everybody feeling? You, Coke?
All right. I'm all right, sir.
Uh-huh. Sheehan? Sheehan?
I'm all right, sir.
Newman? I'm all right, sir. Of course. Very well, carry on.
Don't like that. Big spooky. I think.
I have my report.
Later, Carpenter.
It's rather important, sir. Serious personnel trouble is indicated below.
It always is. Give your report to Culver. I'm busy.
But, sir...
Kovacs, give me a GO reading.
Aye, sir. Straight as steady as before.
Mr. Culver. Later. If you will initial the psycho report.
All right. Hurry up. This is no time for non-combat checking.
Seismo reading, sudden fault, igneous activity ahead.
That means the enemy. Mr. Culver?
Aye, sir.
Elevate the cutters 25 degrees. We're going up and come on the enemy from above.
Aye, sir.
Navigation, Watson.
Elevate 25 degrees.
25 elevation. Aye, sir.
This
Figures ahead on sonar, sounds like 3.
All right. Sound general quarters.
Aye, sir.
this reads like someone writing a submarine fic, but they wanted to get to the science fiction
General
kids.
quarters.
Of all the stinking luck aces I got.
Get into your armor, you tub of loss.
Yeah, give me a hand, Shin. The oxygen valve on my helmet's stuck. Too tight. Helmet's too tight.
You eat too much.
At least I eat. Not like Noma.
Yeah, look at him. Full armor and he's still smoking. I bet he lives on nicotine. Hey, Newman,
Yes,
you live on nicotine?
tobacco is necessary to me.
Say that, I rope it. What did I tell you?
All right, shut up and test your helmet radio. Snap it down.
Okay.
Now I'll get mine.
Can you hear me? Is my intercom okay?
Okay. Keep the power up.
Newman, check your intercom.
I can hear you.
Attention. Attention. Combat detachment. Move out.
Where are those chow runners with battle breakfast?
Breakfast, huh? I can remember when I had meat in chow. When I had cooks instead of food chemists, first class.
Quit griping, Coke. At least we eat.
Yeah, we eat. How about him? Want any breakfast, Noma?
Man, everybody's really rustling this dude's jimmies about not eating.
I can wait without it.
Navigation, Watson.
Bridge here. Half speed. Half speed.
Half speed, aye. Clark,
What?
what's the matter? You got the shakes?
No, I'm all right.
Half speed.
Half speed, aye.
Attention, all hands. Enemy diggers sighted.
What?
Huh?
Prepare for action at close quarters. Enemy diggers sighted.
You hear that, Watson?
Prepare for action at
Close quarters.
Full speed forward.
No, I won't.
What? Come on, full speed forward.
No. Another inch. Stop this ship.
Get away from there.
Let me go. I gotta stop the ship. I won't be killed. I won't be killed.
Get away from the control.
Oh,
Clark.
that's what he's about.
You hurt? All right, take it easy now.
What? I've got a gun. Stop the ship. Stop
Uh-oh.
it before I shoot you.
Now take it easy, boy.
Ooh.
Won't be killed. I won't let him. I'll give you 3, Watson, then I shoot.
You don't know what you're doing.
I'm gonna stop the ship. 1, 2.
He's got the
Ah!
he's got the stir crazy.
You could have wounded him, Carpenter. That would have been enough.
My judgment was the Clark was more than a marginal risk. I acted accordingly.
Sure. I'll get a detail to clean up after you.
Oof. So that's what they mean by psychological
Doctor.
operations, huh?
The commander says you'll rate a citation.
If you had read my report, Mr. Culver, you'd understand.
Carpenter,
Aye, sir.
don't let the crew hear of this. Wouldn't do for them to know an officer was emotionally unstable.
You won't keep it quiet, sir. There was a detail to remove the body. What's that?
Enemy digger within 100 feet. Coming in fast.
Hold it, Culver. Don't reverse engines. Turn on the drill with the tread stationary.
Aye, sir. Full speed drill.
That's not a fun
Red, cut
sound.
out.
That's making my ears unhappy is what that
Blow up a
is.
cloud of dust that'll blind their optical
That is,
technicians.
that
Aim for
is.
red. Stand by, gunnery. Stand by, gunnery.
Ready, sir.
We got a ways to go here. We also gotta go up about 60 blocks, but we'll go up.
There it is. Hold
And we gotta go
rates.
about 40
Navigation.
blocks actually.
Cut out drill. Cut
No,
out
I'm looking
drill.
at the Z coordinate. We got a little ways to go here, so
Fire when ready.
yeah, we got a
Fire.
good 100 or so blocks to go, but we only have to go up about 10 blocks, so that's not as bad. So we'll head this way.
Contact signal. Contact signal received.
Cease fire, Mr. Culver. Contact signal. Cease fire. Enemy battery silent, sir.
Give the go-ahead to the combat men. They can move in. Who tripped that alarm? Cut it off.
Navigation to bridge.
Bridge, aye. What's wrong down there? Why the emergency?
The atomic pile's kicking up. We can't get into hand damp. She may blow any minute.
I'll take over, Mr. Culver. Prepare to abandon ship.
But the enemy diggers,
With
sir.
the atomic pile about to blow, we'll have to advance, destroy the enemy, and take refuge in their ship. There's nothing else we can do. Look alive.
Aye, sir.
I mean, that
Attention,
is
all
one way of
hands.
doing it, I guess.
Prepare to abandon ship. Prepare to abandon ship. Kovacs, have the ship's records packed and ready to go.
Aye, sir.
Commander,
Watson, what are you doing up here?
be a lot more chance of getting out if the ship's engines were reversed. She crawled back down the tunnel before she flew.
There's no way to set up remote control.
I know. I thought I could stay and run her.
But the pile's going to blow.
I know.
All right, Lieutenant. Permission granted. You may stay with the ship.
Thank you, sir. You may go, Watson. Aye, sir. We can't let him do that, Commander. You can't ask any man to do that.
This is no time for sentiment, Mr. Culver.
Doctor, you're a louse.
That's an unstable statement, Culver. It's obvious that Watson isn't worth much anyway. He might as well die.
I've heard enough, Doctor. You've had this coming a long time.
Get away from me.
Culver! Culver! Pearson, get him!
Let go of me, Culver.
Yes, sir.
All right, Kovacs. Release him.
Aye, sir.
Culver, I need you now, but if we come through this, I'll be forced to prefer charges. Kovacs, help Dr. Carpenter up.
Yes, sir.
All right, Mr. Culver, give the order to abandon ship.
It's got some big vintage sci-fi energy, is what it has. I'll tell you that. What are we looking at here? Am I in the right Z coordinate? I am.
All the men are away, Kovacs. Full speed in reverse.
Aye, Mr. Watson. How long have we got before the pile blows?
I don't know. Kovacs, why did you stay here? You could have abandoned ship with the others.
I've been saving a cigar. I got two. Would you like one?
Oh, thanks. That's good.
You kids and your tobacco.
You didn't answer my question, Kovacs. Why did you stay?
How about you, sir?
Me? I was in the last class out of Annapolis before it went underground and merged into the Geo-Warfare Academy. I guess I just hang on to illusions. Dead traditions of service. I suppose I did it because I thought it was the right thing to do.
Yeah, I guess that's
Yeah,
it.
we gotta
when
get
you
to
get down to it.
207.
Kovacs, you saved a cigar against the rules. I've got something too. It's a book. I stole it out of a hotel room in Frisco in the old days.
Bible.
Psycho officers don't allow them on board. Carpenter would have had me in the cells if he'd known about it.
There goes the Geiger alarm.
It'll blow any minute now. Kovacs, you remember this? The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures.
I mean, that's what you get when you get a Bible quote when someone mentions the Bible as an important plot point. I don't know. I don't know. I have a really particular
Now you know what an
fondness.
enemy underground cruiser looks like. Let's board her.
What was that, Sheriff?
I don't know. Come on. The enemy left their landing trap down.
Let's go.
The enemy leaving their landing trap down is not a good sign. Pro tip.
Kicked in his faceplate.
Look out for my gun recoil when I go up the ladder. There may be waiting for us.
Where are they? Ought to be some resistance.
Let's get outside.
They left the door open. They're not gonna have any resistance. They have a plan.
There it is. Break your hatch.
I don't like this. They should have been guards.
Forget that. You throw open the hatch. I'll cover him with a gun. Got your voice speaker on?
Right.
Okay, open it. Go on in there.
Cope. Look at them. They're all dead. Every one of them.
Ooh, that's not good.
You beat that. Killed himself with a sword.
Confound this foreign equipment.
Culver, how soon can we get this enemy ship underway? Give me the damage report.
Aye, sir. The port tread knocked out, armor breached aft in the midships, gun batteries inoperable. Lieutenant Adamson estimates we can make limited headway in 2 days.
Very well.
Sir, is it necessary for me to have this guard tagging after me?
You're under arrest, Culver.
Excuse me, Commander, sir.
Oh, go ahead, Coke.
There was a message or something under the guy with a sword when I broke in. I kept it as, well, sort of a souvenir.
Oh, give it to me.
I didn't mean anything wrong, sir.
Hand it over. Culver, you read the enemy language.
I'm afraid I'm under arrest as a prisoner.
That'll do. Go ahead, read it.
From Supreme Headquarters. There's a code designate. 2 all field commanders. Subject, secret weapon, X-39. Failure of 1. Research project X9 released on South America front last night. X9, a semi-living chemical process attacking all forms of protoplasm, was found to be uncontrollable. Is spreading through our own armies all over the world.
They bioweapon themselves.
You are instructed to...
Well?
That's all.
Quiet! Gentlemen, there is only one way to interpret this news. Carpenter, you will inform all hands that the destruction of the enemy is worldwide. The war is over.
Yeah, Duke can't go back to the surface.
Dr. Carpenter,
Aye, sir.
you will instruct cook to serve double rations as a celebration.
No, sir. I strongly advise against it. The psychiatric implications are...
What's the matter?
I don't know. Something it's inside me. I've got to get out.
Carpenter! Coke, Newman, go after him. Come on.
Ooh, that was not a good scream.
No. That can't happen to a man. Not that.
It's Carpenter. You can see that.
But that can't happen to a man.
He's dissolved.
What's going on here?
You don't understand, Commander. You didn't listen to that enemy message. A semi-living chemical process attacking all forms of protoplasm. All forms. Carpenter, and you and me. You understand why the enemy killed us. They knew. The war's over, all right.
There's got to be something to do. Calvert, Sun General Quarters.
It's too late for that, Commander. The war's over.
The war's
There's no
over.
perfect weapon. The human race is dissolved.
Ooh, that's spicy.
Dissolved like Carpenter.
The human race is dissolved. Oh boy. Yikes. That's
Human,
that's good and spicy, isn't
is
it?
that you?
Yes.
They're all dead. Aren't they?
Yes. Commander Sanderson was the last. I suppose so.
How about you?
It will not affect me. I am not made of protoplasm. I am an inorganic synthesis.
Can't die
No,
Mm.
I am atomic powered. My breakdown point is calculated in thousands of years.
Dang.
I cannot destroy myself. I was conditioned against it.
It's beginning. You'll be all alone, huh?
I know.
Buried alive in the rock for thousands of years. I'm sorry for you, Newman. I'm sorry. You'll be all alone.
Poor thing.
It's starting. I can't stand it.
Why can't I die?
Wow.
Why didn't they make me so I can die like the others?
That's dark.
I can't even kill myself.
That's... Wow.
Why can't I die?
That's super dark.
Why can't I die?
Well, now you know I didn't screen this. Oof. Yikes. That got very heavy. Wow. usually they're, you know, intense, but not.
Man has always told himself that he was master of the machine. But will he always be? Listen next week to the story of a nightmare.
The story of a nightmare.
Dimension X is transcribed each week by the National Broadcasting Company in cooperation with Treat and Smith, publishers of the magazine Astounding Science Fiction. Today, Dimension X has presented The Last Objective, written for radio by Ernest Kenoy from the story by Paul Carter. Featured in the cast were Lawson Zerbe as Culver, Ralph Bell as Dr. Carpenter, Wendell Holmes as Watson, and Jack Grimes as Newman. Your host was Norman Rose. Music by Burt Berman. Engineer George Mathis. Dimension X is produced by William Welch and directed by Edward King.
I didn't know it was gonna get that intense.
Dimension X
if
came
I
to you from
did,
our Radio City studios in New York. This
I
is
would've given you a
NBC, the
content
National
warning.
Broadcasting Company.
That's. I mean, just generally, I'm warning you. This was on, you know, the air in the 1950s. So like, it can't be that bad, but it might get a little spicy, apparently. 263, 154 is where we're headed.
The National Broadcasting Company, in cooperation with Street and Smith, publishers of Astounding Science Fiction, bring you Dimension X.
You know, I didn't know that I didn't know that Astounding Science Fiction
Nobody knows
did this.
exactly when the nightmare began. They must have planned it for years, though, because looking back, you can find little incidents here and there. Like the concrete mixer in New Jersey that killed the bricklayer, and the time Senator Milburn was sucked into the roto-press at the Capitol Office Building. Unrelated accidents, we thought at the time. But they add up now. The day we really should have suspected was when the men walked off the construction job at the new Brookmeadow atomic pile on Long Island. I'll never forget that day. I was working as a statistical clerk in the project then, operating one of those miracle computing machines developed to fill the requirements of Army ordnance. They called it ENIAC.
Ooh, very spicy. ENIAC, name drop.
Oh, yes, Bella?
The chief wants to see you in his office.
Me?
Unless you're no longer Samson Gurney, he wants to see you.
Oh, well, of course. What do you suppose?
I do not read minds, tea leaves, or crystal balls.
Of course, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have asked.
Don't apologize.
I'm sorry.
And don't wait for me. Mr. Hawk is in a hurry.
Yes, I'll go in right away, of course.
I don't read minds, tea leaves, or
Her
crystal
name
balls.
was Bella Roscoe. She was Mr. Hawk's secretary. I had always thought her a very attractive woman, but for some reason, she didn't seem to like me. Of course, on a clerk's salary, I couldn't exactly afford to take ladies to the best places. But I've often thought that if there weren't such a disparity in our ages, I might have... But then...
Come in.
You wanted to see me, Mr. Hawk?
Gurney, I thought those electronic computations were infallible.
They are, sir.
Well, we got a kickback from the chief physicist. These nuclear equations are inaccurate.
No, they aren't, sir.
I'm telling you what the memo says.
Well, sir, occasionally, if there's an overload, the machine goes haywire. Sort of has a nervous breakdown, you might say. We usually rest it up for 24 hours, and it's okay again.
Well, do whatever has to be done.
Yes, sir.
Oh, and Gurney.
Yes, sir.
You've been with the Bureau for over 15 years now. It would be a shame to have to remove you because you aren't keeping your mind on your work.
Well, Mr. Hawk, I hardly think anyone...
Excuse me. Hawk speaking. What? Dave, what? All of them? Well, have you tried to talk to them? Yes, of course. I'll send one of the safety engineers over. This place is falling apart piece by piece. Miss Roscoe?
Yes, sir.
The men on the construction gang at the new building have walked out on us.
What?
Someone slipped this morning and fell into a turbine.
No.
Get the chief safety engineer. Have him over there right away.
Yes, sir.
Oh, and contact the personnel office. Have them ask the union to order the men back to work. Get back to me.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Hawk. Sorry, Gurney, I have no time to discuss anything further. Get on the job and stay awake, or we'll have to make some changes.
Mr. Hawk,
That's all,
I assure
Gurney.
you...
That's all.
Now, you probably gathered by this time that I wasn't a very important man at Brook Meadow. I hated Mr. Hawk with a passion because of his superior attitude, and because I knew that Miss Roscoe admired him as a man of strength and decision. I was secretly happy he was having trouble with his construction crews. That evening, I wandered over to the site of the new atomic pile to see where the man had fallen into the turbine. They had the construction area fenced off with barbed wire, and a security guard stopped me.
Hold it, buddy. You can't go in there. That's a restricted area.
I'm Samson Gurney from the statistical section. Here's my identification.
I'm sorry, Mr. Gurney. Nobody's allowed in the area.
I see.
We had a lot of the employees come over tonight to take a look, but nobody gets in. Orders.
Tell me, was he, killed instantly?
Like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. This guy was checking the magnetic field inside the turbine, see? Right down inside it. It's all over.
But if it wasn't hooked up...
Look, Mr. Gurney, they got smarter guys than me trying to figure these things out. Yesterday it was a concrete mold. Wham! 2 guys get sucked right into the mixer.
My.
3 days ago, a bulldozer starts up by itself and runs wild. 1 killed. 2 almost. Go figure it out.
You know what I think? Sabotage.
We got more guards and FBI men in here than we got workers. Flea couldn't get through without proving he didn't come off a Russian wolfhound.
Now, I'm a statistician. All my life I've been interested in
I need to go
statistics.
down.
So, a simple-sounding thing like this started me off. I went back to the office that evening instead of going home, and for the next 2.5 hours, I computed figures on the probability of industrial accidents for the types of machines we were using.
Somebody remember that. Positive Z
I took
direction.
one look at my figures and went down to Hawk's office. Just as I figured, he was staying late working on a settlement with the construction workers.
Yes?
Oh, good evening. I saw the light.
Oh, Mr. Gurney, what are you doing here?
Is Mr. Hawk working late?
Yes, I am too.
Oh. I wonder if I could see him a moment.
We're busy right now. Could you make it tomorrow?
It's very urgent. I'll wait, if you don't mind.
Suit yourself.
Miss Roscoe, I wonder if perhaps you would consider having dinner with me this evening after you're through.
I have a date, Mr. Gurney.
I was thinking we might go to Raymond's. They have very good spaghetti.
Mr. Hawk has already asked me to have dinner with him at the Golden Shish Kebab.
Well, of course, that's out of my class.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mr. Hawk, Mr. Gurney would like to see you a moment. He says it's very urgent.
Urgent? All right, I'll give him a minute.
Okay.
Thank you, Miss Roscoe. Mr. Hawk, in the past 3 months, industrial accidents all over the country have taken a sharp, unexplained upswing.
Why don't you stop playing FBI man and stick to your job, which incidentally you haven't been doing too well. You and our computing machines have made mistakes before. Now this is probably another. I'll have Miss Ross come so... What's the matter with this blasted buzzer? Miss Roscoe! Miss Roscoe!
Yes, sir.
Stop this blasted buzzer. Get a repairman, a mechanic, anything, but stop the thing. And you, Gurney, get out.
I went back to my office to get my hat and coat, feeling about as unhappy and humiliated as a man can feel. He had thrown me out in front of her. The office was dark and deserted. The whole building seemed oppressive and unnatural. walked across to my desk. In front of me, the ENIAC glowed and chattered eerily as it worked on the equations we had fed it that morning. Its many-fingered circuits hung against the wall like some great octopus. And the thousands of tubes glowed orange and blue in the dark like 1,000 eyes staring at me. It almost seemed alive. Then it increased its tempo a moment, and a fleeting notion crossed my brain that it was laughing at me. Laughing like all the others. What was the matter with me? What? I shut my desk drawer and began to put the cover on my ENIAC typewriter when an amazing thing happened. The most amazing single incident of my life.
Really?
Alone in the darkness, with no one at the keyboard, the ENIAC typewriter began to type. Am I going crazy? This can't be. There's nobody here. There's nobody here. Oh, no. I'm just imagining. It's in my mind.
You tell yourself that, bud. You go right ahead and tell yourself that, bud.
The paper was there in the carriage. Would I dare read it? Or would the whole thing suddenly vanish and send me shrieking to the nearest psychiatrist? Sampson Gurney. There are some equations better left unsolved.
Ooh.
The answer to yours is death.
Uh-oh.
It was not until I turned to go that I was suddenly aware of the utter and complete silence of the room.
Uh-oh.
Then it dawned on me. The ENIAC had stopped working.
The ENIAC is not a happy camper. Someone has offended the computer.
Gurney, do you expect me to believe this? It's insane.
Mr. Hawk, I'm a saint.
Take it easy, Gurney. Now, this is just some practical joke someone in the office is playing.
There was no one in the office.
Of course not. They wired up the machine and left.
I checked the machine myself, Mr. Hawk.
All right, Gurney. You leave this note with me, and I'll turn it over to the security force for further investigation.
What?
No buts, Gurney. The security men will handle it.
Will the security men handle it now?
Too hard lately. You've got to relax more. Now, here, let me light that cigarette for you.
Always with the smoking in these 50s programs, huh, bud?
I just put fluid in it. There's a brand new flame.
It seemed ridiculous. A little piece of mechanism like a cigarette lighter frustrating the big important executive.
Oh, blast this lighter. Ah, here's a match.
It was such a small thing. And yet as I watched him, a thought began to take shape in my mind. Nebulous at first, incredible perhaps, but it grew.
You just relax for a few days. Everything will turn out all right.
I really like this kind of inner monologue going on. Very anime. I guess anime is kind of doing that.
It was the cigarette lighter that gave me the idea, and what Hawk had said about little things. For the next week, I observed the 1,000 petty little annoyances around the office. The door handle that wouldn't turn, the telephone connection that cut off in the middle of an important call, the power failure for no explainable reason. Suddenly, these things began to fall into a pattern. I, Sampson Gurney, knew that I had stumbled onto a secret so monstrous in its implications that I was almost afraid to pursue it.
Ooh, spicy.
On October 12, 1956, I established communication with them. I will curse the moment to my dying breath.
Ooh.
Who's there?
Dying breath, huh,
Hi,
bud?
security guard.
Oh, hello, Henry.
Oh, hello, Mr. Gurney. What are you doing here so late?
I'm just doing a little repair work on my ENIAC computator.
Huh. Sure some mess of wires and tubes.
Yes, it is.
Well, I gotta finish my rounds. Don't forget to turn out the light, will you, Mr. Gurney?
No, Henry, no, I won't forget.
Night.
Good night. When you were a child, did you ever try to imagine that you were all-powerful? I felt like that when I finished hooking the input of the typewriter to the main vacuum tube of the ENIAC. Then I turned on the current that sent 1,000,000 volts of pulsing energy into the electronic nerves of the machine. I am certain that if anybody were watching me in the next moment, he would have thought me a raving maniac. I still wonder if perhaps it is not all a nightmare.
Why are you overvolting your ENIAC like that?
You! If what I have guessed at is true, if there's life and intelligence in this room, make a sign! There was nothing. Nothing but the hum of the machine and the dull glowing of the tubes. Then, suddenly, without provocation or explanation, it happened.
Ooh, what happened?
The ENIAC typewriter began to respond to the impulses from the machine.
Ooh.
The letters were Y, E, S.
Yes, huh?
It had happened.
Not a bad place to start.
I, Samson Gurney, had communicated with a machine.
I love the, like, dramatic interludes.
I was about to try to communicate again when suddenly, on ball-bearing casters, a heavy metal filing cabinet began to roll away from the wall toward me. I started to move to one side when another cabinet slid out from the wall, and then another surrounding me. That was when I realized that they cooperate. We taught them that, you see, on the assembly lines and in the factories. There was no way out. How could a mere man reason with dumb machines? Still, they needed us. They needed us to oil them and repair them and build them. They hadn't gotten to the point yet where they could exist without man. I had to make them understand that before they killed me.
You know, for how cheesy this is really good.
You must listen. What good will it do you if you kill me? I'm only one man, but I can help you. I can be useful to you. Do you hear me? Do you hear me? Good. You're going to need men to oil you and repair you. I'll do anything. I'll do absolutely anything you want, but in the name of God, don't kill me. If you can understand this, answer me.
See, if this was modern, the machine would go, there is no God.
The appeal captured the longing of centuries. Man as slave to the machine. And after a moment, the circuits glowed more brightly. The cabinet slid back to the walls. As I tore the tape from the machine and read it, the words were almost pathetic in their longing, but most ominous in their implication. They read, "Address me as master."
Ooh. Ooh.
My life for the next 6 months was a nightmare. The ENIAC gave me messages which I had to transmit into my telephone. I was frantic. I began to lose weight. I couldn't sleep. My nights were torture, a constant fear. It was in December, just after Christmas. I was sitting in my room, listening to a broadcast.
Ladies and gentlemen, a special bulletin. Already 24 hours before the peak of the New Year's traffic, over 1,000 deaths have been reported. This is an unprecedented figure. Again, if you...
It's a little
that
high,
very afternoon, I had transmitted a message to the telephones for relay to all machines of transportation. The message was one word. Kill.
That's not a good thing.
Next morning, I avoided my office. Instead, I went directly to the office of Mr. Hawk. I was highly agitated. My lips trembled as I spoke.
Well, Gurney,
Mr. Hawk, what I'm going to tell you sounds crazy. I know it does, but I must say it.
All right, say it then, for heaven's sake.
Mr. Hawk, have you ever heard of resistentialism?
Resist what?
Resistentialism.
You're not making sense, Gurney.
Mr. Hawk, I'm trying to tell you. All these accidents, the trouble with the machines, Mr. Hawk, they're alive. They think, they cooperate, and they hate us.
Who?
The machines. Gurney, you've got to believe me. I've communicated with them. I know. What are you doing?
Now, just relax, Gurney. Everything will be all right.
What are you doing?
Miss Roscoe, send for the plant physician at once. Mr. Gurney has had a nervous collapse.
But, Mr. Hawk...
Everything will be all right, Gurney.
Isn't it interesting that we still...
long rest.
You fool. You blind, stupid fool! Can't you see what you're doing? Fool, fool, fool!
We're still on this
when the
thought
plant
of a
physician arrived
computer
a few moments later,
learning for
Lucius
itself.
Hawk was found at his desk, strangled to death in a nest of telephones. The wires were still humming softly.
Ooh.
Samson Gurney, you stand accused of the crime of murder. How do you plead?
I did not kill him. I didn't.
So record. Prosecution will proceed with justice.
Now, Miss Roscoe, did the accused quarrel with your employer on the morning of the murder?
Oh, yes. He and Mr. Hawk quarreled violently. I could hear Mr. Gurney screaming at him. And Mr. Hawk asked me to send for the plant physician.
What were his words?
He said, Mr. Gurney has had a nervous collapse.
Now, Mr. Simpson, you are a guard at the Brook Meadow Project?
Yes, sir.
When did you have occasion to meet the accused?
Right after those accidents. He was snooping around the construction area.
I like the big symbols. Definitely doesn't make it hard to listen to.
Court hereby finds you guilty of murder in the first degree. Recommendation that you be examined, committed to the state hospital for the criminally insane at Matawan.
I mean, at least they're committing him and not, executing him. Because, these old stories love to do that. Just over the top. Maximum.
And that's how I came to be here at the hospital, Dr. Klein. That's the whole story.
Thank you, Mr. Gurney.
You can see that I'm not insane. You must believe me, Doctor.
Of course I believe you, Mr. Gurney. Now tell me about this revolt.
It will begin in Washington, then spread to New York.
Yes?
The Madison Avenue buses lead the charge. Picture it, Dr. Klein, 3,000 buses roaring rampant through the streets, people running like rats in a maze looking for manholes in the pavement.
And you really believe this will happen, Mr.
I
Gurney?
know it, Doctor. The worst part of it is there's no way to stop them now. It's too late.
Now, you mustn't excite yourself,
But,
Mr.
Doctor,
Gurney.
don't you see? It's fair enough, I suppose. We built them. We taught them to think for themselves. It was bound to come. I guess the female machines will be worst of all in the beauty parlors. They're more high-strung, you know.
Well, since there's nothing we can do about it,
Ooh,
Mr. Gurney, suppose you go to your room.
50
Maybe
sexism.
if I went
Spicy.
to my old Plymouth, I could make a deal before the police cars got me.
Yes, Doctor?
Would you take Mr. Gurney to his room, guard? He's already been given sedation.
Yes, sir.
Those concrete mixers may have made a mistake, you know. Just high spirits and all that, but if they got so they liked the flavor...
We'll see
well,
you later, Mr. Gurney. Now, try not to worry too much. All right, guard.
This way, sir.
In fairness, if you had heard somebody saying this on the street, you'd be like,
Telephones strangling people. Oh, blasted cigarette lighter. Why won't it work? I just filled it. Flint is good. Oh,
most people these
You
days,
can never trust this newfangled machinery.
most people these days would say, would not be shocked at, something like this. Just because of neural nets and stuff. Personally, that's why I think we need to be careful
Next week, Dimension X will present a story of the future. A story of an insignificant pebble in the sky called Earth. And of a man from a distant star who grew to love this
Alright, folks.
planet.
So, I am going to call it an evening there, right at this episode boundary, because I need to sleep. So, this has been fun. As you can see what I was working on. Hang on, I'm going to stop Dimension X now. I do really like Dimension X, though. It's, despite, you know, being very old, and as such, you know, it uses a lot of really tropey stuff. It's good. It's good despite its age. I think it's because it uses old serials. It was sponsored by the same people who did the old serials that I read for Paper Cuts. And in every serial magazine, there's good short stories and there's bad short stories. So I feel like Dimension X runs the same way. It's just a little less likely to find a bad story because they're going to the trouble of making a radio play out of it. But it's, I don't know, I like Dimension X. It's good. It's free, which is nice. It's only free because of its age. It's the type of thing you would hear out of a podcast these days, and that's part of why I like it. I think this is part of what turned me on to, story podcasts, and I really enjoy it. But anyway, on that note, we're gonna get back to the house and then be done. Ooh. There are two animals in my room right now, if you couldn't tell. Magnus is in here somewhere, and so is Sadie. The trouble with having this on while I stream, though, is I don't talk the whole stream. It's just kind of me playing a game quietly. And that's another thing. That's good if you... Wait a minute, why am I going this way? I have a whole... Maybe I don't. No, I do. I do. I have a whole tunnel here. I'm dumb. Zeet zoot. Somebody's texted me. As is the standard around here. I don't know who's ringing my phone. I'll find out after I'm done streaming here in a moment. But like I said, we're gonna get back to the main house, and then I'm gonna call it an evening. But as you can tell, what I've been doing here is, first of all, I dug a tunnel in the nether so that I wouldn't have to spend as much time. I'll finish the tunnel off stream. This is just a world I goof off in. It's not like it's a stream world, a TM. And I'm leveling out this whole island. That's why I was going and getting all that dirt, was to completely flatten the island. And I don't know. I like flattening it and building my own terrain. So anyway, guys, that's it from me. Let me look at my who's streaming to see if we have a oh, Jimmy is Jimmy's streaming Minecraft, so we're gonna host Jimmy Wetzel. Anyway, y'all, that's it from me. I hope you all have a wonderful night and a wonderful weekend to boot. I'll see you guys next time I stream.